Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. I am Jordan Hall, and I'm pumped to be joined by the Brooke Destra. Brooke, we are live at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. There was some news the other day about the 5 restricted free agents for the Flyers getting their qualifying offers. We're going to look at those 5 players. But before we do so, let's hit on the 2 new special advisors to the team's hockey operations, John LeClair and Patrick Sharp. That came out this week. 2 former Flyers. Brooke, I think it's safe to say there's a little bit of a buzz about some fans maybe not loving that they're hiring so many former Flyers. Does it bother you?
No.
What do you think?
No. And that's the end of my statement.
No.
I'm just kidding. Well, no, and I will elaborate. So, I don't know if people are aware of this, but every team in the National Hockey League hires former players in the organization. And I want to stress this and how different it is going to be this time around for the Flyers, because they're not taking the same 4 or 5 names that have been within the franchise for decades, putting their names into a hat and drawing straws and being like, okay, now you go here and you go here and you go here. But it's the same alumni.
Yeah.
It's different. And are we really calling Patrick Sharp
a
former Flyer with 66 games?
Yeah, right.
I mean, listen, whatever floats your boat. No, I think it's funny because I saw a tweet the other day, actually, that was like, okay, I see the requirements for Flyers front office is playing a singular game in a Flyers uniform and owning a suit. And it made me laugh.
No, the stuff on social media is funny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'd be lying if I
but I
don't find it funny.
I don't think that this is like erring on the side of caution, like, oh, here we go again. And I think that Sharp and LeClair are on such opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of Flyers alumni. Again, are we calling Sharp alumni? I guess so. And don't even get me started on the worst trade in NHL modern day history. We'll say
that one worked out in an interesting way.
Whatever, Chicago. But you look at it this way, and you have Sharp, who went on to be a part of a dynasty in Chicago starting with 2010, and that is the furthest I will elaborate on the 2010 Cup for Chicago for my own mental health reasons. But then you flip the script to LeClair, who is one of the most loved Flyers of all time, really, who was on one of the most famous lines in franchise history. I mean, when you look at the Flyers and the history of them, and you're like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You're like, okay, the Broad Street Bullies. What's the second thing that comes to your mind? Legion of Doom?
Yeah.
Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody who sees LeClair on a front office title is going to be like, oh my God, John LeClair? Why John LeClair? It's John LeClair.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think people need to give them a chance. I think that this is much different than what we have seen in the past in terms of former alumni now coming to work for the organization. And they're both winners. They do both have cups.
Yeah.
And ultimately, everyone's goal is to bring a Stanley Cup home. Oh my God. When Mark Stone lifted that cup the other day, I just wanted to cry.
Yeah.
I really did, because it's the best moment in sports. I'm 100% biased. I want that cup in Philadelphia more than I need air to breathe.
And you need air to breathe.
And I need air to
recently.
breathe. Yes, I have a sinus infection, and air is coming. It's very difficult to come by right now. So whatever it takes, I like the moves. I do. And sorry, I just went on like, I don't even know how long I just talked for.
Nice little rant.
But it's just give the guys a chance. It's not the same rotational people that have been in the front office. Like, okay, you're now in hockey ops. Oh, we're going to send you down to Lehigh. Like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like,
no, these
give them a chance.
Yeah, these are not retreads. And for those listening, Brooke Destra is recording through an upper body injury. So impressive stuff there.
Day to
day. But no, I honestly, I don't care. Who cares that they're former Flyers? And if people need some comfort here with these hires, like, to me, these 2 guys, John LeClair and Patrick Sharp, are going to be dealing with prospect development, and then they're going to be reporting back to Danny Briere, Keith Jones, people in the front office. these two guys have 4 Stanley Cups between them. Patrick Sharp was a 3rd-round pick. He was not highly touted. He went on to have a very successful career. 3 Stanley Cups, 4-time 30-goal scorer. John LeClair was a 2nd-round pick. Wasn't crazy highly touted. Wasn't a top 5, 10 pick in the NHL, and is a Flyers Hall of Famer. Has played in 116 career playoff games in this city. Understands what it takes to play in a city like Philadelphia. So these guys have an idea of what it takes to build winning habits at an early age. They probably have an idea of what it takes to develop prospects. So I really have no problem with it. As long as the Flyers are making wise decisions, whether they're a former Flyer or not, make good decisions and start building the right way. So again, I just have no problem with it. I really don't care that they're former Flyers. And quite frankly, Sharp and LeClair are not going to be making decisions. They're going to be reporting back. They're going to be working with kids, prospects in the organization. They're going to be traveling and reporting back. They're not making decisions. So really don't care. And I think these guys have experience.
I'll take it.
Yes.
I'll take it. And you really just, right from the jump, like, I knew Danny Briere was going to come in like guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
But this man is building an army in the front office. And I, for one, am excited.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how long it has been since I was excited about front office moves.
You're right.
So I think that is just, case in point. If you're excited about hockey ops, I guess we have it's going to be exciting to see how the team unfolds. I don't know.
Right. It's mid-June and the team is certainly making news. I think they've basically had news come out every single day this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something has come out. So they're definitely out there. And I definitely feel the organization is definitely privy to like outside perception. Clearly they don't care that some people are bothered by former Flyers. They're going to do it. I mean, John Tortorella at that massive press conference said, why are former Flyers looked at like they're diseased? So they really clearly do not care that they're hiring some former Flyers, and it's not a terrible thing if they're taking a strong stance and going against maybe what some people feel outside the organization.
Absolutely.
But Brooke, we're going to get into these 5 restricted free agents. Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, Cam York, Ola Lyksell, and Ronnie Attard all received qualifying offers the other day. It's essentially the beginning of the negotiation process for these restricted free agents to get their new deals. So we figure why not look at some expectations for these guys? Maybe a player that has the highest expectation among the group, and maybe a guy that could surprise us this year among that 5-player group. So, Brooke, I'll start with you. Among those 5 guys, who are you maybe most excited about, and maybe a player that needs to take the biggest steps next year in your mind?
Yeah, so I honestly feel like all 5 of these guys, for many different reasons, have something to prove this next season, but I'm going to go with Cam York for a plethora of reasons, but let's just start with the fact that I really don't know what this blue line is going to look like next season for the Flyers. Like, there are still a few contracts up in the air that may not be here next year, and I just think he had a whole lot to prove after being sent down and not making that initial opening night roster last year. And I am very interested to see how he plays on his true side. I think that it was very interesting and to watch him kind of develop on the right side when he was playing alongside Provorov. Provorov is now gone. So who's to say that, once he gets consistency back on his strong side, back in his strong suit, he's got just under a full season under his belt now in professional games with the Flyers. Who's to say that he really doesn't just take that next step and really just kind of commands himself as one of those top 2 guys and locks himself in? Because you don't really, I think the level of responsibility is going to shoot up for him more, and he is that calm, cool, collected kind of presence, which is crazy because of how young he is, that he's just kind of going to take on that leadership role. And I really hope that he impresses. And I mean, like I said, I'm going to touch on a handful of contracts. Like, you don't know if Tony DeAngelo is going to be here next year. You don't know if Rasmus Ristolainen is going to be here next year. And if that's the case, who's the longest tenured blue liner for the Flyers? Travis Sanheim? He's not much older
Yeah.
than Cam York. So you're going to go from, playing alongside a handful of guys who have been in the league for a while to the potential of being like top two longest players. So I think that it's a lot of responsibility, but I don't see him, falling short of expectations.
York is a guy that I think a lot of people are expecting to have a lot more on his plate next season. There was always debate about the Flyers probably in-house believed Cam York's ceiling was top pair defenseman, right? But then Ivan Provorov plays exactly where he plays, lefty shot, top pair guy. So it was like, how's that going to work? Is Cam York never really going to be a top pair guy? Is he going to play his offside? Provorov is gone. I believe probably in-house. That went into the decision of trading Provorov was we foresee Cam York being a top pair left shot guy. So expectations, I think, certainly are going to go up for him next season, Brooke. Absolutely. For me, it's Morgan Frost. I really think he has raised the bar big time. I think this season it was about, can he be an everyday guy? Can he produce consistently as an everyday NHLer? This was his first full crack at an NHL season, full length, 82 games. He played 81. Was probably the team's best scorer from January on. I thought he really answered the bell in a 1-year prove it type of deal. So now he's up for a new deal. I don't know exactly what he's going to get, but I believe it'll certainly be more long-term than 1 year. And I think everyone's going to want to see the next step from him. Can he be a second line? Can he even flirt with a top line role where he is consistently producing offense? 19 goals, which I think more than people expected. So can he get into the 20 goal range? Can he be one of their top playmakers night in and night out? And can he start looking like a piece to a winning team? I think Frostbrook, in my eyes, really raised the bar and expectations for himself.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people kind of went and hit the panic button when you saw little spurts of him with the Flyers in the past. Like, okay, his game is not translating to the NHL level, but everybody develops differently. You're not going to get those, those rare prospects that are going to be drafted and in the league right from the jump and be that franchise altering player. And you see the numbers that Frost put up in the OHL and you were like, oh my God, this kid is going to be the next pure shooter for the Flyers. It took a little bit of time, but I really liked what he said in his exit interviews. And you had touched on this in when you were covering the RFAs on NBC Sports Philly.com. And he basically just said that it was the biggest year of his life.
Yeah.
And that he's probably going to say that every year that he plays in the league. And I really want to commend him for that because he acknowledged the fact that he grew this year and he took a big step, but there is so much more room for improvement. And you're kind of curious again where he's going to fall on the roster next year, because where does Kevin Hayes fall? Is he still with us next? Is he still with the Flyers this upcoming season? Does Frost kind of really solidify that second center?
Yep.
You really don't know. So I think he's got an opportunity to really be, a top 6 forward for this team, especially with the jump that he had. And he's a player that I've always been excited to see like really hit his stride. And like you said, once the calendar year flipped to 2023, I think he really started to find it. And I think that a lot of that also has to do with John Tortorella just trusting him and giving him the ability to go out and, play the game that he knows how to do.
Yeah. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone, including a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Brooke, I feel the first 3 names of these RFAs are being viewed as foundation pieces for the rebuild, and they really, I think, solidified their spots there this season. Noah Cates, as a rookie, looked like the team's best defensive forward. Organization loves him. Morgan Frost really answered the bell, looking like a piece that can play here every day and maybe be a top 6 player. Cam York could be a top pair guy for the future. Ola Lyksell and Ronnie Adder could one of those two maybe push their way into the picture? I think they are very much two guys that it's wait and see organizations trying to figure out if they're going to be big time pieces here moving forward.
Yeah, so I think that Addard has a shot just because I just feel like that bottom pair is going to rotate pretty frequently. Just to see what Lehigh Valley has to offer. I just feel like it's going to be a rotational of some of the younger guys. So I do think that it's possible that he would be vying for one of those spots. I think that after he was in the last round of cuts, you would say, before making the roster last training camp, and it took him a bit to kind of get his feet under him and be like, okay, back to Lehigh Valley. I feel like some players may see that as a demotion, but it's really not. Like, these are young guys. They're still working their way to the pros, consistently. So I really hope that they don't view it. And man, I want to talk about this later, but Lehigh Valley Phantoms are going to be so fun to watch this year. Okay, back to Ronnie Addard.
No, I think they're going to be worth the trip to Allentown for a lot of Flyers fans.
Absolutely. Flyers Talk Pod, Allentown edition?
Allentown, live.
Who?
Podcast producer Ben Berry, absolutely not.
All right, I'll produce that one. But he ended the season with 12 goals, 32 points, 68 games with the Phantoms. And like I said, again, you don't really know how Blue Line's going to look next year. So if a few of those like older guys get cleared out in terms of contract space, I do think he'll see a decent amount of time with the Flyers. I think he's the most interesting case out of the 5 RFAs that have been signed.
Yeah, I agree. I really do. Addard, if I had to pick between him and Lyksell, a guy that maybe could be more a part of this organization moving forward, I would say Addard. I like Lyksell. I really appreciate where he's come from his draft year, being a low round pick. Really good kid, Swedish. Was one of the best scorers down in Lehigh Valley. I think his biggest challenge will be shedding that label of being a tweener. Yeah. Is he a really good AHL player, but then a guy that can't really crack it at a full-time NHL clip? Can he be a bottom sixer at the NHL level? Because he's more of a top sixer at the AHL level. I think he's going to have to shed that label. It's important to remember he wasn't drafted by this regime. Ronnie Addard was. And you always need ready shot, bigger defenseman, and Addard definitely has, I think, a little more upside than Lyksell. Not saying Lyksell's not going to be, in the organization moving forward. I think he's going to be a very valued member of the Phantoms, but I'm not sure there's real room for him to grab a spot. Whereas Ronnie Addard, I think, depending on what happens in this offseason, Brooke, as you alluded to, could have maybe a role to grab and could be that guy that is the next man up. But, when he's down to Lehigh, if there's an injury with the big club, he's that next guy up.
Right.
I think Addard's going to be a real fascinating player to follow moving forward, how much he grows in his game, and if he can kind of work his way into the picture, because John Tortorella said he wants the defensive picture to be younger next season.
And they will be younger.
Yeah.
Manifesting.
Yes, yeah, with the Provorov trade and the potential of Tony DeAngelo possibly being moved. He has just 1 year left on his deal. And we really don't know exactly how Ristolainen and maybe Sanheim fit super long term. I think it looks like they're going to be here next year, in my opinion. But where do they fit 2, 3, 4 years from now? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I do really feel like, and now we're kind of shifting gears to active players, but I feel like DeAngelo, it makes a lot of sense for a trade deadline kind of move with the expiring contract. Whereas I would really try to move Ristolainen in the offseason. And again, it's nothing against Ristolainen. I actually very much like him on the Flyers. It's just contract that it's bothering me so much.
Yeah.
If you want to take a pay cut, Rasmus, you're more than welcome to stay in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And I think the good thing, if you're looking for movable contracts, Ristolainen's, I would say, is more movable than Sanheim's. Sanheim's is just kicking in this season.
He's stuck.
8 years,
glue,
no move. Yeah, Ristolainen's is a 5-year deal, I believe, and it started last year. It's less money, probably more movable, and Ristolainen's probably coming off one of the better years of his career. maybe he was sheltered a little bit this season, but definitely took major strides and has a playoff quality to him in terms of physicality, in-your-face defense. Some teams might be intrigued by that.
Yeah, for all the NHL GMs who are listening to the Flyers Talk podcast, Rasmus Ristolainen. Good guy.
Yes.
Good guy.
Good guy to have.
And I do mean that genuinely. I hope that people don't think that that's sarcasm. I do very much like him.
Yeah.
Just not your contract.
Right. Especially for the team, with where the team is now.
And where they're moving.
Yes.
It just doesn't make much sense for him to stay the long haul.
Right. If they feel like they could be 3 to 4 years from even being relevant in terms of contention, doesn't really look like Ristolainen definitely fits that. So like these are big decisions they'll have. I still like Travis Sanheim. I still think there's a ton there. He's shown us that he can do it. I think the Flyers in-house really want to work with him more and believe he can be a piece of this moving forward. He's not real old yet, and he is signed, whether people like the deal or not. He should be here. I think he will be here. Perhaps discussions about him not being a part of this could come down the line.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's a no move clause, and it becomes modified later on where he can be moved to a certain amount of teams or a certain number of teams. But Brooke, Noah Cates, I want to ask you about him.
Yeah. And I know you have always been so high on Noah Cates since he joined like rookie camp. I remember you were like, I have to do this Noah Cates interview. I'm doing one-on-one with Noah Cates. I was like, Jordan Hall is locked in on Noah Cates.
It has been fun. It has been fun to see him from that 5th round pick in 2017. I remember talking to him at his first development camp. Skinny high schooler that had that real famous goal when he was in high school. Mm-hmm. So it's been fun to watch him develop into an everyday guy now.
Oh, yeah.
Brooke, in your mind, there's been some comparisons to Sean Couturier by his teammates. Is that too premature? Or do you feel that this guy could eventually be a Selke caliber guy that produces offense and is your go-to defensive forward?
I do not think that the references should be taken lightly.
I agree.
And I mean, to draw comparisons, and people, I don't know where people are getting at now where they're saying Couturier was never a top level high end NHL talent. Shush.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Before his injuries, that is who he was. When you were looking at the Flyers, it was like, okay, Sean Couturier.
Yeah.
He is the guy.
He was a premier shutdown centerman.
Exactly.
Before his injuries.
He earned the Selke. He had the other nomination, just was it a year or two prior? And he's top end talent. So for Noah Cates to draw any kind of comparison to such a well-respected player who is very damn good when he is healthy, I think that's a lot to be excited about. And you almost, you're so curious how the relationship between Cates and Couturier could pan out once he's back and playing. Compared to the off-ice, on-ice dynamic of the two. I think that Cates can take so many strides forward this year, learning from somebody who does have a very similar game. And listen, I don't know. I'm going to take it. I know that Konechny was so high on Noah Cates being able to play alongside him, and I'll just wrap that up because you know how I ramble when I'm sick.
No, Brooke, good points. Honestly, the Konechny one, that's what caught my attention.
Yes.
That's a player that found his NHL success playing alongside Sean Couturier. And then he played with Cates a lot this season. And he went out of his way to say, for Cates to remind me that much of Couturier in his first year, really says something. I don't think Konechny was just going out of his way to say that.
No.
I mean, this is a guy that's experienced both players close up. So that was the one that definitely caught my eyes. Now, for Cates, I think the challenge will be producing more offensively. I think that's the next thing on his plate. If you want to be a Selke caliber guy, those guys produce offensively. I mean, Sean Couturier is a 2-time 30-goal scorer. So does Noah Cates have 30 goals in his future in one season? I'm not sure yet. But I do think it's real promising that he was a 5th-round pick. Those guys don't always make the NHL. Now he looks like he's going to be a shutdown kind of center or a guy that you can at least rely on late in games, up a goal, down a goal. That's real promising. Yeah, you got to look at the small victories when you're rebuilding, and I think
Yeah.
Noah Cates is a small victory in the sense that he's a part of this and was drafted as a 5th rounder in 2017.
Right. And I also do want to preface by saying us talking about these restricted free agents, no, they may not even be here
Yeah.
to start the season,
Yeah.
you know? So, and I am fully on board with everybody can move this off season. There are no must save people.
Yeah.
If you are going and making the leap to a rebuild, everyone is on the table. But when you're looking at these 5 players and in terms of their upside, if you guys stick around, I really hope Noah Cates is one of them, just because you can't have enough two-way centers that are really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That are really good. So if Cates really gets that offensive side of his game connecting, I know he struggled with faceoffs a lot this season. However, it really was just, again, his first full season with the Flyers. You know, who knows? You know, you get the sophomore slump potentials, but I don't know. There's so much possibility for him, and I'm really rooting for Noah Cates.
And I think the 3 guys that we mentioned, Cates, Frost, York, part of rebuilds is getting young players to take major strides and be cost effective as well. You can't have, like, if you're trying to rebuild and you're trying to gain cap space and build young players into your lineup, you have to get them at cost effective deals. I think all 3 are going to be cost effective. I don't know what they're going to get for their new deals, but I don't think they're going to break the bank right now.
No.
At least not yet. Potentially, maybe some of these 3 guys down the line could, garner major, deals. But right now, I think they're still going to be cost effective, and they have the potential to be foundation pieces, and that's crucial because, as we all know, the Flyers need to get out of some cap struggles. They need to clear way for when eventually down the line, if they feel like they're about to take a step, they can go out and they can maybe have some fun in free agency. They're not there yet, but you have to eventually do that, make way cap-wise.
Yeah.
And you get it. You do that by having young players take big strides and do it not making a ton of money.
Yeah, and I also do think that with these specific 3 players, I think responsibility is going to fall on them well. Like I touched on it when we were talking about Cam York, but I feel like being given that level of responsibility and trust in your game is only going to amplify it. Like I don't think that those are going to be players who cower under pressure.
Yeah.
Which is really good in terms of the sense of, they're going to be around, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let's see what they can do with this responsibility.
Spot on. It will be very interesting to see how much more these players can do when there's more on their plate.
Yeah.
I think they got their feet wet last year. They played full seasons, but a lot of times they were playing with maybe some veteran players. Can they start to become more of the guys here? All worth watching. And Brooke, there's going to be a ton more to talk about coming up here. We have the entry draft getting closer and closer in late June. Free agency starts July 1. We'll keep an eye on these restricted free agents for when they might sign.
We are going to have a fun offseason,
Yes.
Jordan Hall. And again, when is the last time I said the Flyers are going to have a fun offseason?
Off-season, exactly.
Woo-hoo.
Definitely an off-season with tons of questions and a lot of unknowns. We'll have it all covered right here on the Flyers Talk podcast. Brooke Destra, thank you so much for joining me. Great seeing you. Great chatting with you. Feel better. We will talk to you next time. Ben Barry, our podcast producer and guru, thank you so much as well. And Flyers fans, of course, as always, thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate and listen. And we can't wait to talk to you next time.